Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to my fan commentary on episode 19 of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, Lost and Found in Translation, where this was the very first time, for anyone's guess, for anyone who's been a Power Rangers fan 12 years up to this point in the series, Lost and Found in Translation being the first episode of Power Rangers, or probably the only thus far, if you count the funniest moments thing with Johnny on Bosch back in space in 1998, to feature footage of Super Sentai and their actors and footage that was in the Sentai in full briefness in an episode of Power Rangers. This particular episode of Dino Thunder, I've seen this episode more times than I can count because, well, as much as I like Dino Thunder, and there were some episodes, episodes like this is one of those silly romp episodes. But though I feel like this episode, episodes like Lost and Found in Translation, you can't get away with this kind of episode in Power Rangers today because, from what I can tell, based on the controversy of the episode when it came out, because I remember back in the day when I remember back in 2004. Oh God, the glorious times of that year it was indeed. When I was 11, 12 years old as a kid, preteen, trying to get into that big boom of that anime that we had during the days of Cartoon Network's anime boom and 4Kids TV and Jetix and, man, those were the days. But thinking back to this point with this episode, I mean, I remember ABC Family you can briefly see Onyx when Connor turns the TV off. You briefly saw the planet Onyx that we last saw back in Power Rangers in Space and Lost the Galaxy, but that was the last time we saw Planet Onyx, and that was just brief. There was some controversy toward this episode because, when they did this episode, this was when they were starting to, this was like the one experimental part of the episode where this is when Connor, Ethan, and Kira start to find out of their counterparts in Japan. And this is them discovering that Power Rangers, of course, is based on Super Sentai. But then this is where they discover the differences between the Japanese show and the American show. But this was back when I didn't know what the Japanese source show of Power Rangers was, because of all the years for anyone who's been watching Power Rangers as long as I have, and for the almost 30 years I've been living on this earth, would I ever thought, back when I was a kid, I would never really thought that Power Rangers was based on a long-running Japanese show that's been around longer than our show has, in this case, Super Sentai. Although Kamen Rider has been around longer than Sentai, and Sentai has been around longer than Power Rangers, so... And if you notice, Kenny Yukito, which is the Blue Ranger in the Abaranger dub, he's exactly voiced by Blake's actor from Ninja Storm. Everybody else, I don't know who the random voice actors are for the Dino Thunder Red, Black, and Yellow Rangers in the Japanese dub of the English dub of the Abaranger episode. And the episode they're dubbing for this example, and this is the prime example, being Abaranger episode 10. You gotta love Connor in this episode. While Kira and Ethan want to watch the Japanese Power Rangers, as they call it, Connor just doesn't buy into the fact that, he's just so, what's that word I'm looking for? He's so egregiously biased about how the Japanese, is so different from our show. Also, the two Abaranger monster villains we see here, they will be used later again when we get to the Dino Thunder team up with the Ninja Storm cast, and when Lothor returns. Since Shubo and Zurgame were already... No, they did come back briefly, but Lothor had new generals from Abaranger's footage used for the Ninja Storm Dino Thunder team up. The female villains in Abaranger would be the basis for Mora and Morgana later in SPD. I think there was a good reason they didn't use these villains in Dino Thunder, because we got Mesogog, Elsa, and Zeltrax instead. Which I'm glad we got, because the villains in Abaranger, again, I never seen all of Abaranger, but what I can tell, it was probably I've tried some curry and I got sick. Yeah, sure. Albert Black likes that food, but then he goes to the bathroom and gets sick. You know, I bet you in the original dub, in the original version of the Abaranger episode, he probably had diarrhea, but let's just say in the dub, he's just in the bathroom throwing up a lot. Oh, hey, look, it's the same black guy that we had in that those few episodes of Mega Ranger. See, a monster like Kachin would not work in an American episode plot of Power Rangers because there's simple reasons. It's just his gimmick of having wig balls to give people, especially all the sumo wrestlers and women and stuff. This kind of plot with him throwing money and money things to give people all these multicolored wigs would not work in a plot of an episode of Dino Thunder like this. So that's why they have to parody and do a huge, English dub spoof of Abaranger and make fun. It's just, it wouldn't work. And this is a prime example. And also the original Abaranger morph sequence. And half of this morph sequence, especially with the helmets roaring, that was in the opening theme song. Like in every episode of Dino Thunder's opening theme. It's just every time I see that part with the the Rangers with the helmet. I mean, the Rangers with wigs on the helmets, even on the Zords. So much for Maybelline or CoverGirl. Easy, breezy, beautiful CoverGirl for the Rangers. Yeah, and even Connor still can't buy into it. Oh, mushrooms! Throwing mushrooms at his, at his enemies, and then mushrooms that will, when it's thrown at people, then they get these wigs, and even Kaching, even the Cash Monster, even has a wig on his head too. Oh, and that's even embarrassing. This is what really tripped me out watching this episode because, yeah, this is the same black actor, the same black man. He's American, like half American, half Japanese, probably. That's what tripped me out. Like, first time have I ever noticed that, they were going to go that far having some American actors in something tokusatsu like this back then because this has happened in a few tokusatsu shows outside of Sentai. But I do remember there was this one episode of B Fighter Kabuto, aka Beetleborgs Metallics in Japan. They had a white actor that was speaking English or half Japanese and English on B Fighter Kabuto, and also that guy looked a lot like Simple Jack before Simple Jack was even a thing from Tropic Thunder. Are you going to sit down and watch the show or not? If you're going to keep bitching and complaining, you can just might as well leave and don't want to watch it. Now, this part here, there were some scenes they had to cut from this part when the Blue Ranger was giving Whacker Wilson, yeah, that's disturbing with all the money eyes and stuff. Whacker Wilson, giving him, a massage to fix his back because after, what did he do to swing his back? Now, when Whacker gets upset with Kenny, the original line was, in Japanese at Bucky Barnes, it's like, look what you did to me, man. It's too painful. I can't take this anymore. But, and yeah, I never did like this part when he was dancing, doing all that, shaking his butt. I mean, it's just, and then also, of course, they had to omit the part with him kissing the Blue Ranger in the face. I mean, that wasn't right. But that was in the Japanese show. This episode of Abaranger was the only episode of the Sentai I ever watched. I wish I watched more of Abaranger, but it's just too bad we won't get a official Shout Factory DVD release. Since Hurricaneger was the last Power Rangers era Sentai to make it to DVD here in the States by Shout Factory. And it seems like ever since the Hasbro changeover, we haven't had any DVD, American DVD releases of Abaranger all the way to right now with whatever Sentai we already just adapted into Power Rangers, like Go Buster or something. Of course, it makes sense to put Connor in front of the screen to censor what was... I don't know what was going on in the episode. You gotta love Connor in this episode and kind of hate him at the same time for this. How he overreacts over the fact that that Sentai, it's just like Power Rangers, but except Japan does things different from what we do here in the States with the show. See, I don't understand why Connor is so upset that, the Japanese Power Rangers, again, Super Sentai, does things different from what we do here. And you see, how would you feel if I came across watching Japanese anime, the Japanese dubs of the anime for the first time? And you watch you watch the English show, the English dub of the anime. And then when you discover the Japanese one, and then when you find out, oh, there's some things that they cut from the from the Japanese show for our show because censorship and other things, it's like he would probably, that person would get upset, and he would be a lot like Connor and wouldn't like the fact that the English show is, the Japanese show is so different from our version of their show, and also got an American white guy in the show playing a pitcher. And yes, baseball is big in Japan, of course. Ever since the monster put a wig on Whacker Wilson's head, it's like and then he gets obsessed with money, and then yeah, where did he get the money from is beyond me. Oh yeah, the monster. See, and then that sumo wrestler. You can get away with this kind of stuff in Sentai, but I can't believe they actually managed to keep this in. And then that flash animated bird with a wig on. That's... well... The way how those money coins look, they look like they were made of paper, but they look more like cardboard. Because, well, they are cardboard, of course. But they look very paper. They look like paper machete type money coins, like the dimes, the quarters, and the pennies. And heck, this kind of Ranger battle, this kind of battle would not work in a regular Dino Thunder episode, because this kind of fight with the Cash Monster, like for the third act, it just wouldn't work. I've noticed they barely ever use the Raptor Riders, because that's all they had in Abaranger. While Dino Thunder, they had the Raptor Cycles. And you see with the Rangers using some of these piggy banks, these oversized piggy banks, this just wouldn't work, if they were doing their own version of this episode, using this footage and the episode plot, because it wouldn't work. And if Ethan had some person in Reefside who was a renowned sports athlete in Reefside, this kind of plot wouldn't still work. It still wouldn't work. So that's why this kind of plot only worked when it worked in Abaranger, and then for them to dub over the whole, almost 50 or 90% the whole episode, and just dub it over with the actors, ADR voice actors that are part of the Power Rangers production team. Yeah, and also this part with the animated bird stuff, it's just, again, they should have cut that out. Because this kind of stuff just wouldn't work if you were doing a regular Dino Thunder adaptation of the 10th episode of Abaranger. And of course they had to adapt this episode because, well, Abaranger, the Black Ranger was already established, but in our version, when Tommy got his, Dino Thunder powers, that was in the 4th episode. So this episode was 10 episodes early before our show would even have Tommy as a Ranger. After the Z-Rex blaster blows up the Kaching monster, I don't think there was a Megazord fight in the original Sentai episode. And this was the only time they would use actual sound and audio and music from the original Sentai episodes, and even the theme song. The only time we would get any references to the Sentai theme songs in Power Rangers is when you would hear Chase and Koda sing Kyrioger's theme song in Dino Charge. Looking back on Lost and Found in translation, I kind of do have some mixed feelings for this episode, because while parts of it is funny, parts of it is enjoyable, but there's some parts of it I didn't like. Like the way how they, adapted this whole episode of Abaranger, just in an example of how they could have, this was again Disney's plan of what they could have done the Power Rangers. Once when Saban sold, Power Rangers to Disney, Disney kind of did wanted to adapt the Sentai and just name it just Power Rangers, whatever season you're adapting. But of course, you have to cut out certain scenes and certain imagery that's not acceptable here in America, like English dubs, English dubs of existing anime like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. And then you see a bit of the Abaranger logo, and that's it for the episode. But all I can say is, when they did this episode, it's just very controversial, and it feels like it is disrespecting the Sentai a little bit, or pretty much most likely.